Thank you so much for that warm welcome. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I am so excited to be doing this super fun webinar where I get a chance to riff on my favorite thing in the world, or one of my favorite things in the world, which is songs. And so before we begin, I felt like one of the best ways that we could kind of start is by having a bit of an emotional roller coaster experience, but in a good way, in a very contained way. And what I really mean by that is, we all know the power of music. We know that music is something that kind of gets to us deeply. And I'm not going to kind of be showing you anything differently than that because we already know that. But what this workshop really is about is the intention in bringing the mindfulness to it. So what better way than to have a bit of a musical experience? And so I'm just going to kind of invite you to find a comfortable space and just let yourself kind of go on this musical journey. And we're just going to explore the ups and downs. I'm just going to play a couple of bits and pieces of music, and we'll have that experience just to kind of get us warmed up. So here we go. As I mentioned, this was our emotional roller coaster. So I imagine that you may have had many different experiences while you were listening. And, as Melisa mentioned, I am a music psychotherapist, and I have the pleasure of facilitating a group that is very much connected to what we're talking about today. It's my song Tapestry method, which is a method that I came up with that is the curation of playlists as it relates to working with unconscious material. So we're going to go a little bit more into that as we continue. But the group I do is at a place called Reconnect Center. And I've been doing groups for a long, long time. But I'm bringing this one up in particular because every week we do what we just did. We work with songs as a way to resource ourselves, to stabilize, to express emotion, to validate our emotions, and to overall work with emotional regulation. And the reason why it's very interesting that I'm working with that particular group is that it's at a trauma center. And it's so important to be mindful and aware of the kind of music that is brought in and how we're able to process that music and contain the group and create a sacred space. So I wanted to do this kind of emotional roller coaster, number one, as a mindfulness activity, just to kind of explore what it feels like to just not have to do anything except to listen, and how music listening in itself is in many ways a mindful activity, but also to really just show how we can go up and down with songs. So my hope is that as we go through this workshop, you walk away feeling more empowered and more aware in terms of how powerful songs are and how you can begin to become more empowered around your song selection and what you choose to take in, and maybe even getting some more understanding of why certain songs create certain triggers for you. And that can even be something that you can take into your therapy sessions and even go deeper. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. But thank you all for playing along. And if you're still here, if you didn't sign off, then great. So that was our emotional roller coaster. And so I'll just start off with a quote. The precise language of music directly communicates what cannot be said with words. The experience at the moment of crossing the threshold is music is one of surrender. Our controlling nature gives up to a creative presence. Our ego opens for that moment and a more complete awareness enters. Attention focuses on a musical event too fast or too complicated for the thinking mind to accomplish. And Rudolph said that in 1988. So of course, not telling you all anything that you don't already know. We know that music is powerful in that kind of a way. But one thing that maybe we didn't realize is that music actually disarms the ego. So it actually disarms the defense mechanisms that we have. And it basically transcends it and goes past it so that we can then have an emotional experience. And that's why it's so quick. I don't know if you've noticed during the opening activity how quickly you were feeling what you were feeling. So within seconds, right? Only takes 5 seconds of a song starting to have a kind of emotional experience. So music psychotherapy, for those of you all who don't know what that is, because a lot of people are like, what's music therapy? And a lot of people think I just kind of walk around with a guitar on my back, playing Kumbaya to try and cheer people up. And that is a very small percentage of what I've done as a music therapist. It actually goes quite deeper than that. There is a psychotherapeutic component to music, and people who do music therapy, such as myself. So the relevance of music to the dynamic process of psychotherapy rests on these three main notions. And that is what I was just mentioning, that music taps into the unconscious, and that music making involves a unique form of a simultaneous interaction between therapist and client. So there is that therapist-client relationship that tends to be the focal point for most Western psychology, the relationship between therapist and client. And also that music provides a non-discursive language of emotions. Music is the language of the emotions. So the effectiveness of music therapy lies within its uncanny ability to bypass the natural defense mechanisms of the mind, one of the things I was just saying, and allowing the client to discover and heal unconscious negative patterns. So in turn, clients can create more self-awareness, we have more insight, we develop emotional regulation tools. And so by engaging in therapeutic musical interventions such as this one, clients can experience treatment in a non-threatening way because music is a safe container. So one of the cool things is that as we work with songs as a therapeutic tool, it's not necessarily the feeling of being therapized. So if you're a therapist on this webinar, then one of the ways this could look is if you ask your client, well, what's the first song that pops into your head when you think about your mom, or when you think about your dad, or when you think about a theme that is unfolding in that person's life? And then, utilize that song to be able to explore deeper what's happening in the unconscious. And if you're, actually the client, then beginning to notice what songs are coming up for you around whatever the struggle or whatever the focus is in your treatment process is another way that you can work with songs for yourself. So just a little bit of the techie stuff, music in the brain. Again, a lot of you all probably already know this, that music stimulates the regions of the brain involved in the movement, attention, memory, learning, and emotion, also including the auditory cortex, the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the limbic system. Music creates positive emotional experiences and decreases anxiety by releasing dopamine, and it secretes immune-boosting hormones, decreases pain, enhances glucose brain use, its main energy source. And also the brain fires symmetrically when listening to music, especially if you're a trained musician. I always think that one's pretty interesting. And in terms of the body, music can lower your blood pressure, can also reduce the frequency, intensity, duration of headaches. It can reduce seizures in epileptic patients. It can decrease sleeping problems. And also it helps to create the stress-related hormone cortisol, which also helps to repair damaged tissue. So there's also physiological effects that music has. And so now we're going to move into more of the psychology. And so Carl Jung said that I feel that from now on, music should be an essential part of every analysis. Music reaches the deep archetypal material that we can only sometimes reach in our analytical work. So I love that Carl Jung said that he was huge on archetypes and dreams and symbolism. And what we're going to find is that song is a metaphor and a symbolism, and also can be considered an archetype. So what are archetypes? Archetypes are defined as images and themes that derive from the collective unconscious. As proposed by Carl Jung, archetypes have universal meanings across many different cultures. And so this is something that I love this photo because you see all these different kind of figures. And so we're going to work with this theme of archetypes mainly because they are so visceral and because they expand and they basically transcend culture, they transcend race. Those are their symbols that are understood by the collective consciousness of humanity. So like dreams, music evocations can be subjected to analysis and interpretation and can be utilized to identify unconscious material as well as integrate this material into the conscious mind. So music It's just like a dream. You can analyze it. It can give you clues. Songs that pop in your head give you clues to what's happening in the unconscious. And so if you've ever been walking down the street and a song just pops in your head, begin to notice what it is. And it's not necessarily the same thing as, like if you hear da 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 da. I mean, maybe that is like, maybe that means you want some McDonald's French fries. That happens to me all the time, unfortunately. But sometimes songs pop into our heads because we've heard them over and over again. But other times songs just kind of come out of nowhere. So it's those kinds of come out of nowhere songs that can be clues to our unconscious. So a music therapist by the name of Kenneth Ibrusha says, songs are ways that human beings express emotion. They express who we are and how we feel, and they bring us closer to others. They keep us company when we're alone. They articulate our beliefs and values. They allow us to relive the past, examine the present, and to voice our dreams of the future. Songs weave tales of our joys and sorrows. They reveal our inner secrets, and they express our hopes and disappointments, fears and triumphs. They are our musical diaries and our life stories, and they are the sound of our personal development. I love that quote. So what I will also say is that songs are also really intense and they're highly triggering, which is why we're here, because we want to also be able to learn about what that really means for us and how we can take care of ourselves within that process. And so now I'm introducing the song tapestry method, which is what we're going to be working with. And this really came to me when I was in grad school, like 17 years ago. I had read about something called unconscious song recall. It was written about by a woman named, I think her last name is Shumaseru. And one of the things she was saying was exactly what I was kind of saying, was that, when you have these songs that pop into your head, what does it really mean? So a song tapestry is an intentional way of harnessing this phenomenon. So what we may do is we'll say, oh, well, what's our theme for today? Like, for example, our theme today is revolutionary love. So as we begin to notice that feeling tone of what it means to love ourselves revolutionary, in a revolutionary way, what does it mean to dedicate a song to ourselves? Instead of us going and looking at our playlist and looking at the songs and say, oh, what's a song about love? We're going to just let it emerge, right? So that's really the difference between a song tapestry and a playlist. So a song tapestry, the way I've created it, it's a musical map. It presents as a playlist, meaning that it can live on a platform, but it really is a compilation of either songs from the group process that we throw in, like we're going to do today, or even your own songs that come to you around the theme. And what this playlist or tapestry does is it instantaneously reveals the gems that are hidden in our unconscious mind. And we can use this method to facilitate expression, understanding, and also radically shift our awareness. What I will also throw in here that I didn't put is that we can use this as a resource. Trauma-informed work is all about resourcing. What is in your resources? What's in your toolbox? So this is a resource. So in terms of ethics and creating space, I think it's really important for me to kind of talk about this a little bit. So the way it works in the trauma group that I do is that we have a disclaimer. In the beginning of every group, we say, listen, we're going to do this song tapestry. And what that means is that we're all going to kind of just notice what song pops up as a result of the theme for today. Typically, I'll bring the theme as a suggestion, and we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know whose song is going to be triggering for who. So we're going to create a sacred space by saying that we have certain rules. We have certain kinds of parameters. And those parameters are, if you hear a song, if anyone plays a song that for whatever reason triggers you, you begin to feel like your nervous system is becoming dysregulated, you're starting to have fearful thoughts, whatever that feeling is. Again, we work with the window of tolerance in the trauma world, right? And I know this is not a trauma webinar, but I'm bringing this terminology in because I think it's relevant for society today as we're all a bit traumatized. So we're learning about what our window of tolerance is, right? And so you want to be able to know if a song is taking you out of that, if you're getting too high, if you're getting panicky, if you're starting to shut down. So if you're getting hyper or if you're getting hypo. So the idea is to be able to always maintain your window of tolerance. And so creating the safe space is by saying in the beginning, okay, listen, we're going to make sure that we take care of ourselves by noticing our body. noticing the somatics, what's happening. Am I moving outside of that window of tolerance? And if I am going to immediately turn the song off. We're all on Zoom these days, so all you have to do is literally hit the button. If on my MacBook, it's like a little speaker with no little curve. Just hit that, or you can take your headphones off, or you could go take a walk, or you could step away, or you could turn your camera off. We have things in place to make sure that the space feels very, very, very safe. If you're doing this for yourself, you can do the same exact thing. If you're listening to, Pandora, and one thing I will say is that we have a huge advantage nowadays because most of us, I don't know about y'all, but I don't listen to the radio anymore, right? The radio is annoying. I've never really liked the radio anyway. So now we have all this power. We can choose playlists, from platforms. We can listen to an album, or we can listen to like the shuffle. So most of the time we do have a lot more power than what we used to have when we were just at the mercy of what the DJ played on the radio. But this still rings true if you have a song that comes on that reminds you of your ex, for example, or reminds you of something that was traumatic for you. You want to be able to notice it immediately. And I always say in my group that I'm not here to do exposure therapy, right? We're not going to be in here listening to songs triggering us. Like that's not ethical. That's the ethics part. Now, if you're in a space with your therapist and you want to do that and you want to go deeply into a song as depth psychotherapy, go right ahead. But in terms of what this practice is, this is about us creating safety for ourselves, utilizing song as a safe container to experience emotion, and being able to utilize it as a resource to bring us back into our window of tolerance, and as a mindfulness tool, right? So that we can notice what we notice and notice where we are. So just know that you have the ability to create that safe space for yourself, and or if you're facilitating this for others, you can create the safe space for them. So a little bit of what I was saying, how do we cultivate a healthy relationship with song? Well, we can recognize the triggers. The body is the messenger. I have first 15 seconds here. I think it's 5. We did that emotional roller coaster. I would love to hear from you all at the end about what that was like. How long did it take for you to feel something, right? So that body message that you get, that's it right there. Not all of us are somatically trained, but a very quick way of doing it, if you're not feeling like you're not really connected to the somatics, then just notice how it feels. Does it feel heavy or does it feel light? Is your body feeling light? Now, again, it doesn't mean that you don't want to ever listen to a sad song. There are moments where you want to listen to a song that validates the mood that you are in. We all do that, right? It's like, why do I want to hear Sade when I had a breakup? Like, because there's a component to music and songs that do validate us, right? But that feeling, right? That's a feeling of like, oh, I'm feeling safe. I'm feeling held. This song is helping me to cry. It's helping me to release something. That's very different than a song being triggering and pulling us into old behaviors or belief systems, right? So it's nothing wrong with playing a song that validates you. And so the other thing I wanted to share too is that we do have the ability to deprogram messages. And one of the ways we can do that is by censoring certain songs. I'm a music psychotherapist and a recording artist. I would never, ever say censor anything except when it comes to this piece, which is if there's a song that triggers you, ban it, hide it from your playlist. Do not play it. You have the ability to say, no, I don't want to hear that. And maybe I can hear it again later. I have plenty of clients that have certain songs that are connected to adverse traumatic events, and something interesting happens as they continue to heal and go into the trauma recovery, the process of healing, right? Or whatever the treatment process is. Sometimes they're able to revisit the song and it has no more charge. So in that way, the song actually is an assessment tool, right? Because it kind of helps you see where you are, and it becomes validating to say, oh, look, I can hear that song now and I feel completely neutral. So it's a sign that there's something has been healed there, right? So you can ban the song. It doesn't mean you ban it forever. You just ban it until it doesn't have the charge on it. Another thing you can do is you can rewrite it. right? So maybe this song is not about this dude or this girl or this situation anymore. This song is about me, right? Songs shapeshift. How many times have you heard a song when you were, 12, and then you hear it again when you're like 20, and then you're like, whoa, I didn't know they were saying that. I saw, actually, interestingly enough, I had this message pop in. It was DeBarge. El DeBarge was singing on a tiny desk, and oh my goodness, it was so beautiful. And it was just him and piano, and they were my favorite songs when I was little, like Time Will Reveal and All This Love. And I just had full body, talk about if it felt light, like I just felt it was transcendent, because of course he has a very, very long history of addiction, which is very sad. The whole family does. So to see him up there singing and to be, just his voice just pristine, but the words and the beauty of those love songs, I had never heard those songs like that before, right? Because when I was young, it didn't hit the same. So you can also, again, revisit songs later and even rewrite them. And that's something we're going to do today. We're going to actually be dedicating songs to ourselves. And I think we're right at that point. So let's see. Yes, we are here. We're going to create our own song tapestry. So I'm going to stop the screen sharing for a moment because we're going to go back to sharing our songs. So I would love to invite you all to utilize the chat and begin to notice what song is coming up for you in terms of revolutionary love, dedicating a song to yourself. This is a love anthem to you. One of the things that I always use as an example is the radio. Remember back in the day, we call the radio station and say, oh, I want to dedicate I Will Always Love You to my baby daddy or whatever, and it was like these radio call shows. So we're going to evoke that same spirit and actually dedicate a song to ourselves. So notice what you notice. Take a breath. I know I've been talking nonstop. I'll take a breath. And start putting them into the chat as they come up. Just put them into the chat. Whatever pops into your head. Don't analyze it. Don't edit it. Just let it emerge. And what we're going to do is I'm going to play one of them. And we're going to just have this experience of listening and feeling it with the intention of it being dedicated to ourselves. Right? And so we're going to just let these songs just kind of flow in, right? Look at that. It's beautiful already. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play one as an example for us to be able to just get the feeling, right? The ones that we don't get a chance to play, we're going to do something with too. So I'll just give you all a minute. I'm going to take a sip of water and we'll see what's going on. This is fun. Oh, yeah. I recognize some of these. Okay. Yeah. This is so diverse. I mean, if you all just kind of even now take a look at the chat, look at all the different kind of songs that are coming in. So interesting. I'm already getting chills, just kind of. Yeah. All right. So I'm just going to pick one randomly. And what we're going to do is we're just going to listen. This is going to be a mindful experience. You can just kind of begin to breathe, just notice your body, and let this be an opportunity to notice your body, right? Even if this is not your song, notice how you're feeling and notice what's happening to your body. And if it is triggering, maybe exercise your sovereignty by hitting the mute button, right? And not listening. So that's fine too. Just notice what you notice. And when we come back, we'll do a little bit of sharing around it. So here we go. Just take a breath. Wow. I promise I did not plan that. That's the magic of this process. I just randomly chose a song and look at that beautiful journey we had a chance to go on. So thank you so much for sharing that song with us, for sharing your heart with us. It felt like I experienced a piece of your heart. And I just wanted to say also that we will be creating a playlist for you all today. So all the songs that just got added are going to be compiled into a song tapestry so that you all could have them. So I will be copy and pasting them, or the CHS will help me with that, and put that together, and you'll get an email with the song tapestry. And so I just want to also say that, you know, this is a resourcing tool. This is a, you know, mindfulness practice. That was the slide that I had back there. So this revolutionary love tapestry is a mindful, self-devotional practice. So what we just listened to, what we just did, that was a self-devotional practice. And I call it self-devotion because it is beyond self-love. It is a self-love in action. I shouldn't say beyond self-love. It's an intentional kind of devotional act to dedicate a song to yourself in that kind of a way. It's profound. So this is a huge resourcing tool. So I'm getting ready to open it up to some Q&A and just to some, you know, checking in. But before we do so, I just wanted to see where we are with the slide. Okay. Yeah, so let's open it up to Q&A. I have some things I want to share with you all later that have to do with resourcing, but and you know, within the Q&A, you know, feel free to share any reflections or maybe what you may have experienced while you were listening to that. Let's just go ahead at this and go to Q&A. Sorry, y'all. There we go. Anything coming up? All right. Well, while we're here, I just wanted to kind of go a little bit further with this resourcing piece, because I think this is really, really, really important. So again, when we talk about resourcing, that's a huge component to trauma processing or any kind of validation. Right. So we resource by stabilizing. And the song tapestry method is a huge way that we can resource, particularly as you get the song tapestry link, as you receive that after this webinar. It can be utilized for you to be able to listen to when you need to feel validated. It can be utilized as a self-devotional practice. So I just wanted to share that, and we've got some questions coming in. Great. Can you explain again how we wake up to a certain song in our head? Yes. So interestingly enough, one of the things that this research that we did in grad school was that there was this song bank we almost have in our unconscious. So very similar to Carl Jung having dreams as metaphors, we also have a song bank, and there are songs just floating around in our unconscious. And so oftentimes those songs can just pop up out of nowhere. And the idea is to be able to say, okay, well, why is this song coming up? Like, what is it that this song is saying to me? Maybe it's the chorus, maybe it's the verse. And it's not about going into analysis paralysis, right? It's just really about beginning to become conscious of what is in the unconscious. So when you wake up with a song in your head, just notice it. Because a lot of times we'll wake up with a song in our head. And so here's a funny example. My mom, the other day, she was like, I keep hearing that TikTok song, you know, oh no, oh no, oh no, 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 you know. And I was like, okay, like, and turns out she had this huge stack of papers on her desk that she had been avoiding for 2 weeks. So her unconscious was singing that, oh no, oh no, oh no songs. So that's a really funny one. And a more clinical example of that would be when I worked with a client once, and I said, well, what's the first song that pops into your head when you think about your dad, right? And they said, you know, Papa's a Rolling Stone. And so it's like, oh, okay. So that gives me a lot of information as a therapist of how that person is experiencing, you know, the relationship with their father, right? And maybe that wouldn't have come out in talk therapy, or maybe that wouldn't have come out in your traditional therapy session. So the idea is just to begin to become aware of the songs, and if they are giving you little messages, you know, and it's not like a warning. It's just giving you information about what's not, you know, you're not aware of in that moment. How can you work with someone on the song tapestry method? I mean, if you are a therapist, you can do exactly what we just did. If it's a one-on-one session and there is a theme that seems elusive, a lot of times it's like, okay, you know, I'm really having resistance around. I guess we can keep it in this particular population. I'm having resistance around intimacy. What is intimacy? I mean, don't get me started. I didn't see what intimacy was when I was growing up. So I would say create a whole song tapestry around intimacy. What is closeness? What is connection? And notice what songs pop up in the therapy session as you talk about connection. Or you can give the client the activity at home to do, right? And begin to notice the songs as you breathe into intimacy, as you consider intimacy, as you visualize connection, what songs come up. That's one way you can do it. And then if you're in a group setting, right, then you can actually do this via Zoom, the way we're doing it. You can play the songs, you can share them, you can ask each group member to give you a song around the theme, just like we did. So the experience I had with that last exercise was calming and relaxing. It felt so open. Oh my gosh, I can totally agree. Like that song was it was just a whole story. It was a whole journey. And that's the magic of not knowing what's going to happen and what songs are being picked. When they pop in your head, there is this kind of spontaneous in the moment, and we can all feel it when it happens, like it just happened. What happens if you don't like other people's songs? It was so uncomfortable what you last played, I had to mute my audio. I think that's fine. If you don't like someone else's song, then you mute the audio. You did the right thing. If it did not feel good to you, if it was not validating for you, then you mute it. That's part of you exercising your power. I think that's part of the whole point of this workshop, is saying, how can I feel more empowered with music? How can I empower myself? So if you want to go deeper, you can, with your therapist, with a coach, with a friend, with yourself, with your journaling, only if you want to. And if you wanted to, then maybe you could say, well, what is it about that song I didn't like? What was it that was coming up for me? That is totally optional. That's if you want to use this exercise as a mindfulness psychotherapeutic tool. Otherwise, you can just say, I didn't like it, and I have the right to not listen to it, and you can just turn it off. So I think it's great that you took care of yourself. Yeah, thank you. I'm glad somebody had to do that, because that does happen, especially with deep emotional songs. I've had experiences of both films and music that I once loved and that I now recognize as reinforcing unhealthy programming around sex and love. Do you have any reflections on still being able to enjoy these, but distancing ourselves from their messaging? Absolutely. I mean, one thing that we could do is we talked about the censoring, which wouldn't be appropriate in this case. I would say maybe, can we rewrite those songs? Can we reframe the messaging, right, around it? If you still want to watch the movie, you can always turn the volume down and just not listen to it. That's my favorite go-to, because it's really difficult to not feel something with music. You're going to feel something. But if you do want to still listen to it, one of the ways that I like to work with that is to redirect the song, reframe it, rescript it. If it's about, like, I can't breathe without you, which is one of my favorite things to hate about music, when people say things like that. For me personally, that's very unhealthy for me personally. Then one of the things I do is that I switch that to, like, nature or the divine. For me, it's the divine. So it would be like, that's my connection that I have with spirit. That's the connection that I have with laying on the ground with the earth. I have that kind of love connection for my higher power. You can use any of those terminologies that take it beyond human. You know what I mean? Like, to create a bit of a transcendent love around those messages. Because oftentimes it's not realistic anyway, right? The kinds of human, those songs about human love that have to do with codependency and attachment, and it's almost deifying another person. And so one thing I'll do sometimes is to actually make that song about my higher power. I sing in a choir, and sometimes in the final rehearsal, the music makes me cry when normally I don't have such a strong response. I'm okay through the concert. Why do I have such different responses at different times? That's such a good question. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it really depends on where we are in the moment. And it could be something unconscious. It could be touching on something in that particular moment. There could be a moment of vulnerability where, you actually are feeling something in this moment that you wouldn't before. So I feel like music helps things to come up when they're ready to come up. So if we're not talking about being dysregulated, we're just talking about an emotional response, which is crying, which by all intents and purposes can be considered a healthy expression of emotion. Music will help us do that. So I think it's really about noticing the moments of vulnerability that we're in. And if we feel comfortable to allow those tears to come forward, then, we can. So these are great questions. Thanks, everybody. How does this relate to challenge of hyperhearing sensitivity? Hyperhearing. I think maybe that means if you have a sensitivity to hearing certain sounds, I would say that the song Tapestry could be utilized to create sounds that are soothing for you. My go-to is nature sounds. So one of the ways that you can work with people who have hearing sensitivity to certain sounds, even if it's ASMR, like certain things like S's affect certain people. And meanwhile, I have like this little lisp, so everything sounds like an S. But if that's the case, then work with nature sounds, birds, flutes, emulate nature. I love Native American flutes, but that may not be working for you. Shells, percussion, light percussion. I would explore and play around with nature. When I thought of my husband of 51 years, I thought of the song he played for me when we were in college, Bridge Over Troubled Water. Oh, that's so wonderful. So that's the other thing we didn't talk about today, the power of memory. So beautiful that songs can do that. Thank you for sharing. I find myself gravitating consistently to music that is highly sexual. Is that something for me to keep in check moving forward? They have such good beats and make me want to dance, but analyzing the lyrics, I think to myself, well, I don't really resonate with these lyrics totally. Well, I mean, isn't that so interesting? Because there's more to music than lyrics. I'm really glad that you brought that up. And again, it's not to go into a kind of analysis paralysis. Like that's the last thing that I want us to do. I'm kind of a naturally neurotic person, which is why I need mindfulness. So I don't want to steer us into, oh my God, I have to analyze everything. I would be aware of it, and you are aware of it. And if some of the lyrics, if you feel like the lyrics or listening to these songs are kind of triggering you or leading you, or almost the way a smelling liquor would be for someone who's trying not to drink, right? So if you feel like it's something that's kind of triggering that, then I would definitely pay attention and use it as a tool in your therapeutic process. Say, hey, this song or these songs, I want to know a little bit more about why I'm gravitating towards these. Or it could just be that you really do like the rhythm and the movement. So this is a great example of how you can use music to increase your awareness, right? This is going to help you to become more aware of what's going on in your body and whether it feels like it's triggering you into a unhealthy behavior. Yeah. Yes, I too, if I love the song, I switch the you to something else. Yes, that's one of my favorite things. He is here with me in this experience. Oh, hi, Vicky's husband. I know for me, sounds and songs can be dysregulating. For instance, highly repetitive songs of whatever genre raises stress levels and feelings of anger. Good awareness. Good awareness. Yes. Can you reprogram those thoughts that are based around music, in this case, a whole genre? That trigger thoughts of heartbreak, music that we used to listen to together. I think it's possible. I mean, I have a whole album that reminded me of an ex, and now when I listen to it, I remember the learning, the lessons. I remember that part of my life being a huge part of my transformation, but I had to get enough neutrality, I had to get enough distance, and I had to get enough understanding around that particular relationship and our agreement that we had and what we taught one another. So yes, I think it could be possible, but just do so with care. As a betrayed partner, I find many love songs about devotion and loyalty make me really sad. Yeah. How do we move forward in romance and intimacy without all the grief? Oh, what a great last question. I mean, first of all, the fact that you're saying that and you're validating yourself, if that's how you feel, I think is the first step. Second thing I would say, pour all of that love into yourself. All of the silly love songs that they put out with all those unrealistic expectations that we place on people through these songs, I would really intentionally turn it around, and say, okay, I'm going to dedicate these songs to myself, just like we just did. So moving forward in romance and intimacy by honoring the grief, right? And giving to yourself what the other person wasn't able to give to you. And I'm now speaking personally and not just as a clinician, because that's exactly what I had to do a couple of years ago. I had to just turn it all around and become extremely self-devotional in order to save myself from, overwhelming grief. Yeah. Is trance music safe? That's a really good question. Do you dissociate when you listen to it? That's the question. Notice, are you leaving your body in a way that doesn't feel good for you? I'm not saying you have to answer that now, but that would be, what I would say is to begin to notice, how your body feels. For some of us, trance music is relaxing, but a lot of people do dissociate and leave their bodies, and that is not necessarily the healthiest thing for some of us, particularly if you're talking about trauma. So if you can stay grounded, if you can stay embodied, if that's what you're wanting to do, and listen to trance music, then by all means, I would say it's safe. These are great questions. So I just want to say that this is a wonderful topic and a fantastic approach to mindfulness and emotional connections. I wish I could stay, but I have to drop off. Thank you. And before you all leave, I just want to share a few resources with you. If this resonates with you, I do have a program that I came up with. It's the ACE on-demand training. It's right on the Thinkific. And it's a program that's designed specifically to work with mindfulness and anxiety and prevent burnout. It's available now, and so I will drop the link. The other thing is I have a more extensive mental health response training, and it's more of creative arts therapy and all kinds of mindfulness techniques. And this is really for therapists and leaders and coaches, but it's also for people who are not in those roles, because it's really about the kind of self-mastery that I've only kind of touched on today, about self-devotion and the importance of, pouring love into yourself. So I'm going to just stop that share, and I'm going to pop in the links to those. And you'll also get the links as well when you get your email with your song tapestry. So there's that. So I invite you all to head over to either the Thinkific course, which is available now, and the training, which is going to be open in April. So I'm really excited. And I just want to thank you all so much. This was like so much fun to be able to do this. And I just really, really appreciate it. And what a wonderful time to do this. It's like Valentine's Day week, right? For us to dedicate a song to ourselves. So I look forward to putting together your song tapestries and sending those out to you all. Yay. Thank you. I appreciate it, Erin. Have a great day, everybody.